Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and today's episode is a meal for two. And gosh, so our previous two episodes of Meal for Two were one was about the frozen food, and the second one was, or the first one was rather, about the frozen food, and I think the second one was when we made the pasta alla vodka. And so it's been a while since we've really went back to, like, talked about what the original purpose of Meal of Two was, which was the original concept, which was, talking about restaurants and what we think about them. So, you know, how do you feel about this? The fact that we're finally getting back to, talking about restaurants.
Well, I think it's good. Well, it has been a while since we went out to eat at a restaurant. That was one thing that we needed to do to get more content. So the fact that we were finally able to go out actually helped. So we have more content.
Yes, indeed. And so this one in particular is a more special, I guess, quote unquote, adventure with this restaurant discovery. And so, how do we start this off? So, personally, I do not like seafood. And by what I mean by I don't like seafood is that I don't like a certain type of seafood dishes, such as like kind of like the bare bone basic. Um, I don't know how you would classify these type of dishes, but like just pan sauce fish or like put in a soup type fish, seafood soup. Um,
So basically non-sushi.
yeah, non sushi and yeah, basically non-sushi. There were very few exceptions outside of that rule, which is like some shellfish I was okay with, like shrimp I was okay with it eating some of the time. I don't, yeah, shrimp I was okay with eating. I think mussels I was okay with eating, but they had to be like baked mussels. I would never eat like a non-baked mussel. Um, I think oyster I've only eaten once, and I particularly just didn't like it because of the texture and taste was kind of. But yeah, I didn't like crab. I didn't like lobster. I didn't like eating, just regular fish. um, and so I was talking to you, Saki, about how I was like, yeah, I feel like I've never had a good, fish dish before, because I feel like I've just been eating it wrong the whole time. Because the one major problem I have with, seafood in general is it tastes like the sea, like the non tasty part of the sea. And people are like, well, that's the point of seafood. You're supposed to taste that. So, I went to Saki and I was like, hey, do you have any ideas? And, you did have one. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So it was a little difficult to kind of gauge what type of seafood you liked. So I just, started asking general questions of, what seafood are you, you'll actually be willing to eat. So once we got that kind of figured out, I kind of was able to narrow down some options. So the first one would be like a seafood boil, which is like kicking crab, where they just get a couple pounds of seafood and, they boil it in a sauce and they bring it out to you and you eat it off the table. There's like the paper on the table and stuff, but that's very expensive, and we're poor, so we decided against it. But we did come to a grilled fish or grilled seafood type like dishes. So I suggested a place called California Fish Grill, and of course I've had it plenty of times before, so I knew what to expect. But I told Jen, I'm like, hey, I know a really good place called California Fish Grill. It's it's what the name says. It's grilled fish. So you're a little hesitant, but I was like, dude, it's pretty good. Let's at least try it. If you don't like it, then okay, it's a dead end there. But so you were like, okay. So we went out, we tried it. You're looking through the menu, and I'm like, I already know what I'm getting because I like a certain dish there, fish and chips.
Mm.
But this time I got fish and calamari, which is squid, so fried squid. And then you were like, what do you recommend? I'm like, pretty much any of the grilled fish are good. I don't know what kind of fish you liked. So you ended up going with a pretty basic whitefish swai.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, all right, I'll try something, basic. So, nothing too complicated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so now you get to choose a sauce, like what you want on the fish. You're like, what did you recommend? I'm like, I usually get garlic butter and Cajun seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
And you got that on the side, just
Mm-hmm.
to be safe. And then you got, your sides, which was, I think, French fries and
It was French fries and
zucchini.
then the
Zucchini, right?
zucchini. Yes, fried zucchini, or not fried
Yes.
zucchini, grilled zucchini.
Like, yeah, pan fried zucchini grilled. So we ordered, and I was like, all right. You were like, is it going to be expensive? I'm like, no, not at all. And you're like, oh, okay. So I went to pay, and I was like, all right, yours is like $12. And you're like, wait, what? For seafood? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, about $12. And you're like, that's incredible. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's cheap and it's good. And you're like, okay. So your hopes got a little higher. And so now comes the time where we actually get the food.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the food. You looked at it. You're like a little hesitant to eat it. And I'm like, just try it. It's pretty good. You're like, okay. So you took a bite and you're like, wow, this is good. I don't taste, like the seawater like type flavor. I'm like, yeah, it's grilled, so you don't really taste it. And you're like, oh, okay. And try it with the sauce. And you tried it. You're like, no, I like it better plain. And I was like, all right, then you like it plain. You don't need to get a sauce. I mean, it's optional. And so you're like, but the whole time we were eating, you were just like praising on how good it was. The price, it how quick it is. It took like maybe 10 minutes from when we placed the order.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just like amazed at how good it was. And so you were like, "Oh my gosh, we need to keep coming back here." I'm like, "Sure, man. It's a healthier option.
Mm-hmm.
It is seafood. It's not like, beef or something or like
Yeah.
pork and stuff." So you're like, "It's healthier. It's light.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on the heavy side. It's not very greasy."
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just like super excited.
Yeah. Because again, you have to consider my perspective, which is I don't like seafood. Every time I've had like regular fish, whether it was like pan fried or like, kind of quote unquote grilled, we don't have a grill. We don't really have an active grill in our house. So like the way whenever it's like, close to grilled, it's like literally fish being put on a pan and, cooked that way. And so it gets like, I don't know how to describe it, semi-burnt. Like the skin gets semi-burnt. Obviously the inside's not burnt at all, but like whenever I taste it, I'm just like, gosh, this tastes like just like the sea again. I was just never a big fan of that type of seafood outside of sushi, because sushi is a completely different story. I really love sushi, but outside of that, I don't like it. Don't like seafood. And so I was really hesitant and doubtful when, Saki here was like, oh, it's not bad, good decent price. And I was hopeful because one, the price was decent, but two, I was also kind of like hesitant. It's like, well, if the price is so low, right? Because $10 for a full-on, remember, it's full-on like grilled fish, like one half of a fish, but like, I don't know how to describe it. Or no, I think it's a whole fish, right? Because it's two sides.
Certain fish you'll get like a fillet, but I think the swai, since it is a thinner and smaller fish, you get the whole thing.
Yeah, so you get a whole thing, and then, mind you, it's not small. It is a smaller fish, but it's not small what they give you. It is, I would say, more, maybe 7 inches more, I would say. It's pretty long. So yeah, there's quite a bit of it, and they give you full on, like, they give you two sides for free, essentially. I'm pretty sure that's also absorbed into the cost, whatever, for $11. But essentially, you can get a rice, like a lot of rice, a vegetable side, which is like, fried zucchini or tomato and feta cheese, and then
They had coleslaw as well.
and coleslaw, kale coleslaw specifically, and
Yeah.
2 sauces on the side or on the fish, all for $11. You have to realize how unbelievable that sounds in today's economy. As we were recording this, in 2023, where everything is, expensive. Um, and so I felt like I was like, am I gonna get scammed with like a small portion size? But you kept on telling me it's like, no, 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 the portion size is good. And so
Good, yeah, good size.
food came out, and I was just like, wow, I did not expect it to be this much, right? And first time, for some reason, I decided to get fries with my fish. That was actually kind of a mistake, to be honest. And I'll explain it a bit later, but yeah, it was like a lot of like a lot of zucchini there, like the grilled zucchini, a lot of French fries, and the two fish, and then the two sauces. And I was just amazed. I was like, what in the world, right? And I look over to your dish, which is the fried calamari and fried fish, or fish and chips basically, with the French fries, and there was a lot of it too on your plate.
Oh
It was a
yeah,
hefty one, and I don't think it was that much more expensive, right?
I think mine was $1 more than yours. So what I got was fish and calamari and chips, which is essentially, fried fish, fried calamari, and chips being French fries. So that also comes with two sides, but I decided I usually go double fries, but I'm like, you know what, I'll change it up. So I got the rice and fries. But my fish pieces, they were hefty sizes.
Yeah, they're not like scamming you or anything, which was again surprising. Um, and so I ate the fish, and I was genuinely surprised like how good it was. It was really light, tender, juicy, and like basically perfectly cooked. It literally was perfectly cooked. I wasn't expecting that because one, here's another thing about California Fish Grill. It's not a standalone restaurant. It's not owned by one person, like, who decided to name it California Fish Grill. It's a franchise.
Yes, it is. They have multiple locations. And some locations, do things better than others.
Mm-hmm. In this one in
So,
particular, the zucchini was better than the location that you usually went to.
yes, I've been to a couple locations. The one I usually went to, near where I used to live, their zucchini was a little bit oily. Like you could tell they were probably just like super busy, but they put a lot of oil. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was at least half oil, half zucchini, and I was like, oh, I can't eat this. It's too much grease.
Mm-hmm.
But the place we went to, I asked if I could have a piece, and I took one, and I was like, oh my gosh, they make it so much better. I don't know why, but I'm just like, it's way better than the other place. We'll just have to come here, and it's a lot closer.
Mm-hmm. And what's also kind of shocking is that despite them being a grilled fish place, mind you, this is California grilled fish. Their fries are just as good as their fish. Um,
Yeah, I do want to add, yeah, the fries, they're really good. You were hesitant because you were like, they probably won't even season them. And I'm like, oh, are you wrong? They season those suckers really well. And you were like, again, genuinely surprised in a good way.
yeah, in a good way. But here is the small, I guess, caveat or issue that comes with these fries. These fries are good because they're seasoned, but the problem is it's really seasoned. Like they do not miss a beat on the season. It's not like the In and Out animal style fry where everything's on the top and so the bottom is just regular fries. No, they like season all the fries. And so, mind you, when you have seasoning on fries, it's bound to be salty because one, you salt the potatoes, and two, you salt the seasoning. Usually there's salt in it, and so it gets actually kind of salty. Not in like to the point where it's like, oh my god, I'm eating salt, but it's like it adds up over time when you're eating a lot of the fries. So about halfway through, I was just like, excuse me. About halfway through, I was just like, man, I really like these fries, but damn, I need to drink a lot of water for this.
Yeah, they do not mess around with the seasoning. What I think they do is they probably have a big bowl. And
Mm-hmm.
once they're done being fried, they throw them in the bowl,
Mm-hmm.
throw a lot of the seasoning, and like toss it. That's
Mm-hmm.
why like almost the whole fry is like coated in that seasoning.
Yeah.
I think that might be why.
It most likely is considering how well seasoned it is, but then again, for a person like me who usually has a lighter palate and more sensitive to like stronger levels of flavor, especially with salt, it's usually kind of a little bit too much. I will still be able to eat all the fries, by the way, but when you're getting a dish like I did, like the swai, if you're getting a grilled fish that is like more on the plain side, like actual grilled fish, likely you would want to rather have the rice, and the reason why you also want to have the rice is because certain fishes do contain more juices. So when you have the rice under the fish, the juices start dropping down, and the rice also absorbs all the juices from the vegetables nearby too. And so that's why I think for sure next time when I get like a grilled fish again, like something similar to a swai, I'm gonna get a rice. But like, fries are still definitely, anyone can eat. Like, I'm not telling you this is the correct way or anything, but that's just my opinion. When, if you were to ever go to a California fish grill, and trying to experience it for the first time, I would suggest if you're gonna do the grilled, let's say swai fish like I did, get rice with it. Don't do French fries, despite how appetizing it sounds. And I definitely would suggest getting one of the vegetables there. Like the kale is good there. I went there back twice, one more time after this, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the tomato and feta is actually decent. I don't think they salted the tomatoes, which is kind of disappointing. But yeah, like the zucchini is a perfectly good side as a vegetable, and it's definitely like overall a complete meal once you combine everything. But for you, your fish and chips, I think, is more appropriate with fries than rice.
Yeah, just because, the fish is already fried. It's like getting like chicken tenders and fries. You usually don't see chicken tenders and rice. So yeah, I just, I went with fries. But because I knew they were going to be salty, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I should double on the fries. I think it's going to be too much salt. So I did go opt in for a rice instead for one of my sides.
Mm-hmm. And
So that
so,
that was just how I thought of it.
yeah. And so, overall, California Fish Grill is one of the most amazing discoveries I ever had in, my life in terms of food, because one, it completely, changed my perspective about grilled fishes, and two, it is shockingly affordable. Again, $11 for my grilled swide fish with, full on, vegetable size, and they don't skip out. They don't like, give you a little. They give you quite a bit, and fries, which I kind of wish was rice during that time. But it's a full on meal, and if you get the rice, you'd be basically having a really healthy meal for $11, 12 kind of. I think it's tax.
Yeah, that's why it was about. It was 11 something, but yeah, if you do add the tax, it came out to like 12, so a little over 12, I think. But it's still that's not a bad price for what you get.
Yeah, and there's all these talks about, oh, go to your local restaurants, or like, if you were to eat out, go to your local restaurants, discover the food they have. Usually they're really good, and have a wide range of options. But the issue with that, in my opinion, and I don't blame any of the restaurant owners or any of like the people who work in the restaurant industry for this, is that usually and typically when you buy a meal from those like family-owned restaurants, they're really expensive. Like really expensive. Like one dish can easily cost you, like in terms of like, let's say the equivalent portion size of what we got in California Fish Grill, it easily costs up to like $15 to $17. And it only goes higher from there depending on what they claim, like, what kind of style of food they're doing, and, what they want to achieve, right? And so the only time you're gonna get a comparable price is like what we talked about, Chris, in one of our very first episodes of Meal for Two was Crispy House and their fried rice. That has a hefty serving size, but in the end, it's fried rice, and it's basically the same price, around $10 to $11. And would you really want to go out and buy fried rice when most people are capable of making it at home? Probably not. And so when you're looking for something different in terms of going out to eating in restaurants, you're generally gonna be looking up towards $15+ for one single dish.
Oh yeah, easily. At like a bare minimum, I'd say 15. I mean, unless because what you're saying, non-franchise places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, since there's only like maybe one or two locations of them, they don't have the luxury of having, bazillions of locations to get some income. They have to rely on just their two, maybe three locations. So yeah, everything's going to be way more expensive.
And so again, I'm not necessarily complaining about it. I'm just saying that is just a situation when it comes to like cost and return for what you want to get out of the meal, right? And so California Fish Grill, again, amazing deals. They don't like not sales, but like amazing worth out of what you get for $11-12. And the thing is, like, we can't really even compare it to fast food because the typical fast food you see is like burgers, sandwiches. I don't know. It's just all typically burgers and sandwiches, right? For fast food.
Yeah,
Burritos,
unless
El
you
Pollo
can.
Loco.
I was gonna say, unless you consider like fast Mexican food with like Taco Bell or something or Del Taco.
Yeah, I guess that is fast food because that is the whole premise of it, being fast. And so, it's hard to compare that to other, fast food franchises just because it's so radically different. Because grilled fish is not the same as, a meat-based product for burgers, tacos, or, sandwiches. And so, we can't really say, is it worth more than going to like a burger place, or is it worth more going to California Fish Grill? We can't say just because they're radically different. But what I can say is, if you were to get a typical, fish dish that includes rice, a side, and I'm gonna omit the sauces just because, just really depends on the restaurant. But basically, rice, vegetable side, and have a decent sized portion of a fish. I don't think you can really come close to the value that California Fish Grill does give anywhere,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I was gonna say it's hard to beat that price.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. So, yeah, amazing. Amazing deal. And so, overall, just yeah, if you're ever in California, Las Vegas, or Arizona, for some reason they have locations in Las Vegas and Arizona, or Nevada, sorry, specifically in Las Vegas. And Arizona, I'm forgetting. I think it's in Phoenix, Arizona. They have like one there or something like that. But yeah, if you're ever in California and you're low key, not low key, but like kind of looking for like a good decent meal for a good price, which is like under 15, go to California Fish Grill. I highly recommend it. It is genuinely worth for getting that kind of meal. Do you have anything else to say?
I'd say take his recommendation because this is coming from a guy that doesn't like to eat grilled sea or like seafood.
Yeah.
So it had to really impress him for him to say, "Dude, I recommend this."
It did, impress me. And so, another quick, thing we want to talk about before we end this episode is, what's it called? Another restaurant. This one's gonna be a lot shorter just because it's not much to talk about other than, it just being decent, and that is, would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, sure. So the second restaurant we're gonna talk about, we did go to recently, so it's probably a little more fresh in our heads. It was a Vietnamese pho place. I don't know if it's a chain, but it's kind of got like a very generic name, so. But it was called Pho May. And this place, again, we were just like, hey, we want to go out to eat one day. We're like, yeah, what do we want? And you're like, California Fish Grill? And I'm like, I just started laughing. I'm like, maybe something else if you want to try, something new. So you're like, okay. So you're thinking on the lighter side, of course. And you're like, huh, how about pho? And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty good, actually. Let's go. And so we're like, okay, where's a good place? And I'm like, I know one. It's maybe 15 minutes from us. So I was like, it's not too bad. And so I was like, all right, let's go here. And you're like, okay, I trust you. So we went and we ended up going and I was like, all right. You looked at the menu, like, wow, everything looks pretty good. Because the menu, they did have photos of all their food. And you're like, wow, you could tell these photos are legit because you could see the table that they were taken on. And so you were just I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, I guess, because the background of the photos were literally the table, like the tables you sit at to eat.
You can clearly tell they're hand shot photos too. It's not like, some fancy like studio light or anything. It was literally just on the like with the table we were eating, and you could clearly tell they took a photo of it because the lighting isn't that great either. But you're like, yep, it's definitely here, so it's gonna look exactly like that. I mean, obviously they do pretty up their dishes more to make it presentable for photos, but outside of that, it's exactly the same.
Yep. What you see is what you get, and that's literally what happened. What we saw was what we got. And so I got a pork wonton egg noodle, a soup, I guess. It wasn't really a traditional pho, so I can't consider it a pho, but it was a pork wonton with egg noodles. And you got, was it beef tendon
Yes, beef
pho?
tendon pho.
You got a beef tendon pho. And so it was also, I told you, I'm like, this place is very quick too. Give it like maybe 5-10 minutes. And you're like, really? I'm like, yep. And so, yet again, about maybe 5-10 minutes, our food came out. And you were like, wow, that is fast. I'm like, I mean, it's not super difficult because they do just basically cook the meat a little bit and then boil the noodles because the broths are already made,
Yep.
probably in the morning every day. So I was like, yeah, they're going to be fast. They're usually very fast. And so we're like, okay. So you ate and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And I was like, yeah, I mean, most of the food's pretty good. I haven't had a lot of the other non-pho dishes. But yeah, you were genuinely impressed again, which is great news. Just trying new things, at least new restaurants. I'm sure you've had pho before, but
Yeah.
so yeah, you were impressed by those two selections. I had at least.
Yeah. Definitely, I wouldn't mind going back again because again, these are decent prices. I think mine was $10,
I
59,
think I'll, I,
95 or something like that.
I think it was about like 11, and mine was like, I think 12.
Yeah, almost none of them went over $14. I think they were almost all of them were under $14 for specifically the pho and noodle dishes, with maybe one exception, which might have been like the seafood one or something like that.
Yeah, again, seafood's just genuinely more expensive. So yeah, I'd agree with that being a little more pricey than the other ones.
But
But yeah, so
mhm.
I would just say, what were your general thoughts?
Good price, really fast to get your food. No complaints really. This is zero complaints. Like there's not much. You can't really complain about it. And I guess one thing to note is that the portion size is freaking huge.
Oh yeah, I do want to add. They used to have back like a couple years ago, pre-COVID. They used to have two sizes, small and regular, which I guess is what we got, regular size. But yeah, they don't mess around. Even the small is still kind of pretty big.
Yeah, like when I had it, like I was full and there was still more to eat. I was just like, Jesus, why is there so much? I mean, if you have like a smaller stomach, right, you can literally go with another person to that restaurant who has a similar sized stomach or like whatever, and order one bowl and share between you two, and you'll be full.
Yeah, I would say so. You get quite a bit of food, and you were actually surprised at how much beef tendon they gave you
Yes,
in
so
that.
like also the toppings, they do not skimp out on toppings, and what I mean by that is like each typical one, like beef short rib or whatever, like thin meat, or they even offer chicken there, and then dumplings, the one you got. They don't give you like, so like for dumplings for example, it would be safe to assume that if you order something like that, they would give you maybe like three, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I got like 6 to 8 of them, and you
Yeah.
took, and I know you wanted to try one, so I think I had like at least 6. I
Yeah,
ate at
and
least.
they're mind you, they're big. Like they're not like tiny tiny dumplings. They're like you know, sizable dumplings too.
Yeah, I don't know if they were frozen, but they didn't look frozen. What did you think? Where
I
did you
don't think
think
they
they
were
were?
frozen. I mean, nowadays a lot of frozen food are pretty good at being deceptive, I would say. especially with Asian foods, like typically within like dumplings or um, that kind of stuff. They're usually pretty good at you know making it seem like it was not necessarily freshly made, but like it wasn't. You didn't buy it off of a grocery store, But
Hmm.
I didn't get the impression that it was frozen food. Who knows? We'll never know. But yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't frozen just by how it tasted. It didn't taste like something you could buy at a like a supermarket or something. You know how they have a bazillion different kinds of dumplings. It didn't taste like that to me. So I think they were actually like made in house, which was, anything made in house is better.
My theory is that they make a bunch of them during the start of the week and then they just freeze them.
Yeah, I could see them doing that too. That
which
that does
which
make
would also
sense.
explain it being a lot, them being able to put it out so fast too, and why the cost may be so lot lower because they're not taking as much time to constantly make one every day. They just make a huge batch during the beginning of the week and they just put it in the freezer, take a couple out, throw it in the soup, or like cook it on its own and then put it in the soup.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, like overall great place. Again, when we say like it's good, we're not saying oh my god it is phenomenal, it is like on par of like eating wagyu or something like that. No, we're just saying it's good, it's delicious, as in like you won't be dissatisfied for what you get. So yeah, that is that we're also not food connoisseurs where we know all the flavors. We're just ordinary dudes. We can't give you like you know we can't describe food to you, those like how those food YouTubers do, whatever. We're just telling you our experiences with our restaurants, unless it's specifically with the franchise where we can be like, hey, maybe this is worth it, hey, maybe it's not. But other than that, like, don't really take us for something we're talking about, like some, unknown restaurant that's hidden within our city or something like that. It's not. It's just good. We like it.
Basically take what we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Exactly what Saki has said. But yeah, um, so it's been refreshing to talk about restaurants again. Since it's been so long. Almost over 6 weeks, I think, 2 months, since we last talked about a restaurant. And so hopefully we can do more again. We do have some kind of like loose plan to go visit more restaurants. And maybe we'll talk about the interesting dishes that Jack in the Box has. Who knows if we'll ever get to it, but maybe in the future. But for now, we're gonna have to end the episode here. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and this is the Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.